stay in your lane message for today, and I'll be on later. But I wanted to just put something out really briefly regarding, a lot of what we're seeing in the media regarding the issues happening within the Asian community right now in regards to elders, older Asian folks being attacked and things like that. I don't think that that's okay at all, and I do think that I'm really hoping that this can just move other conversations forward and like plans and initiatives to like create some type of mechanism where all peoples of color who are oppressed by the system, okay, of the economic system, patriarchy, white supremacy, etc., can stop like the infighting and the bickering and realize that we have a common enemy and move forward. But now I also want to add some, I would say, factors that people we should also think of too with this because, you know, um, there's a reason why I feel like it was something about the way that all of this went viral at the time and everything that was kind of a little bit, I wouldn't not fishy at all, but it was telling because, we see, folks of color getting abused and attacked and shit like that every single day. Oh, elders too, homeless homeless older folks of color, getting put out of their apartments, having to live on the streets, all kinds of stuff. And I want to just like remind us that I'm not. I think that unfortunately the media has done a really good job of pitting Asian American folks against Black folks and all this other stuff. Um, but the bigger issue, the bigger conversation that needs to happen is I, I, I'm just gonna keep it real. Like growing up in the hood, I never saw Black people openly like, oh, let's attack and belittle and do this to Asian folks. I grew up with actually hella Asian folks, like hella Filipina, some Vietnamese, Chinese, um, really the Vietnamese and Filipinos community. Um, and I never really, there was never really that going on. We all actually got along. They dress like us. They like our movies. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that one dance, that TV dance show, Jabberwockies. Every other group used to be Asian on there. Like I never really, there was never really any of that really going on when I was growing up. So I feel like we need to be mindful of what this narrative that's being written or spoken up on right now in terms of like they're saying anti-Asian hate, but so who's doing the hating? Because I never really saw any of that growing up. I'm not saying that that if you're Asian that you haven't been through any prejudice or anything. I'm not saying that, no, because this is a racist country and they're definitely prejudiced towards different groups. Definitely. But I want us to just be mindful of how far we take this because I feel like there's an agenda behind all of this in some ways, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Now, another thing that I want us to think about is the fact that even within what we call Asian, there's so many different like sections and cultures, and they don't even all get along with each other and things like that. Like for instance, like Indian folks that are in India right now, they're considered 64% black based on their DNA haplogroups, but they're considered Southeast Asian. Are they also part of the conversation? Because they get more hate and more flack than the quote unquote traditional Asian community. There's a reason why there's the caste system and the Adivasi and Dravidian people are at the bottom, still being abused and disrespected and things like that. Then even different parts of Asia, you have the Philippines, you have China, you have Myanmar, you have Japan, you have all these different places. So we also have to be careful because there's the legacy of colonialism as well. China was never colonized by any country whatsoever, period. Vietnam was colonized by the French and somewhat the British. They were, and some Spanish. The Philippines was invaded and colonized by the Spanish. Japan was actually invaded by the Chinese. India was invaded and colonized by the British and some Chinese because they're still even having border wars till this day. Border wars. So that's something that you have to take into consideration because when your legacy has not been touched by the spirit of colonialism, imperialism, the removal of your culture, stuff like that, there's a certain level of intactness that you do get to keep and have. So I want us to think about that too, the legacy of colonialism, because talking about anti-Asian hate, and a lot of we have to be mindful of that. But I'm not saying that Asian folks have not experienced, was Chinese folks have not experienced any type of systemic oppression, historical oppression, because then when they came to the United States to try to work, things like that, they were excluded. They were disrespected. They had the Chinese Exclusion Acts. You guys know that the United States literally passed laws against Chinese folks being able to come here and work and stuff like that. They would like kick them all out to their country, and then they would open up like the gates where they can come every now and then just to do work for like the American steel and railroad companies and stuff like that. Look it up. And you want to know who helped to actually get those acts revoked and removed? It was black people during the civil rights era. Yeah, a lot of different cultural groups, races that are here in America right now, Arab, etc., all of that. A lot of the reason why you guys are able to like get rights and things like that is because a lot of the suffering that black and brown people did in the South. Because even with the Civil Rights Act, there was even specific acts passed about the Native community and Chinese community um, in tandem. I want you to go look that up, the Chinese Exclusion Acts. And then also too, like back in those days, Chinese folks would develop, well, Asian folks would. It was mainly the Chinese that was here, so I'm saying that they would develop things. They would develop Chinatowns where they can stick together and help each other and support each other. And because the Chinese were known for fortune telling and reading astrology and stuff like that, they would constantly have and they would do like underground operations. They would stick together and stuff like that. Like they really made a lot of money doing laundry and Chinese food restaurants back in the day. That's how they built a lot of their empires. They would constantly get their communities raided and stuff like that by like the rich white business owners to take away their money and things like that and keep them powerless. So these things did go on. They did go on. They did go on. Now the thing here though is there's that does go on, and the media promotes it, and there is ignorance within the community, especially that YG song. They took it down from YouTube. They took his song down. He made a song talking about how to hitting licks, like, first of all, go to an Asian community because they don't like banks. That is not about Asian hate. He's just saying that they got money, so that's people who you focus on. It's just hood logic. If it was Arab folks that did that, if it was Latin folks, they would have said the same shit. It's not about. So there's that. But I will say this: there is some ignorance amongst our folks, black folks, brown folks, other races towards the Asian community, and vice versa. Is there this like collective sentiment that every person is against Asian folks? No. Do Asian folks that go throughout their day have to deal with discrimination and prejudice and shit like that? Yeah. At the same exact time, too, though, Asia is a problem towards black people. Look what they're doing in Africa now. Have we talked about that? And on top of that, I want to let you guys know there's a distinction. What type of Asian? Is it the Asians that just migrated here? Because that's different than the Asians that have been here generations and generations in Chinatown, and in different in Chinatown, Koreatown, Japantown, and stake their claim. I also want to remind you guys of the Japanese exclusion acts, where they gathered up all the Japanese people across the United States and they put them in camps. They did that here in San Francisco. There's a huge Japantown, and they gathered up all the Japanese people. Look this up, because of World War II and the Pearl Harbor, and put them in camps. So there has been atrocities and stuff like that. So we're not taking away from that, but there hasn't been that colonialism, which is a key factor. And then on top of that, Asian folks too, they are a superpower. We can't we have to keep it real. China specifically is a superpower over America in a lot of places. So there's that power dynamic that exists too. So even with the anti-hate conversation, I feel like there needs to be balanced because I know a lot of racist ass Asian people, y'all, and it's actually hella sad. And I also know a lot of ignorant, like Latin, Black, etc., not non-Asian people of color who also harbor prejudiced sentiments and some ignorant notions. So we need to be mindful. But this is the thing too. There's a power dynamic that does exist that needs to be discussed. Like so for instance too, one, look at what China's doing in Africa right now. Look at what Asia's doing in Africa right now. It's crazy. You all see it. Look what's happening in Asia with Africans right now. Do you guys see there on the news? There was some Nigerians that had migrated to China, and when the COVID quarantine hit, this whole entire this community of Africans got booted out of their apartments in China, literally put onto the streets because the Chinese landlords didn't want them bringing COVID. Because in their mind, they're like, well, they're Africans, they're gonna bring it because that's kind of like the racist notions. There's also been a lot about black and brown people, traveling over to Asia and getting killed by the police and stuff like that. You know, migrating to those places for a bit to do work or better life and getting killed. There's a lot of that going on right now. There is a lot of that does go on in Asia. It's not safe for a lot of people there, especially if you're a African person. Look at even here in America. Look at the hair shops and the nail salons and stuff like that. They got that in the liquor store sometimes. They got that stuff all down packed within the black communities. But look how they treat us. You guys remember in 2018 over the how it was like literally back to back to back to back to back to back, people getting attacked at the nail salons randomly, like grandmas and shit like that. Like it was crazy. I was like, why is this happening? Because I know sometimes people can go to the salon and get rowdy. So I understand that. But this was like a grandma was just standing there asking, hey, like I would like to get a refund where my nail wasn't looking right. I was watching this video and this guy came out of the corner with the stick and just started hitting her. And that caused a big ass problem in New York. They were doing protests. They got one of the salons shut down because it was two salons. They were owned by the same group, and one of them got shut down because they boycotted it. So all of that was going on too. Then people getting beat up in hair shops and stuff like that. There is a certain level of disrespect that they do bring into the community when they come and they set up shop here and stuff like that. Not all, but there's some. Not all, but there's some. They open restaurants in our community, all this, and then there's a really good documentary by Shakti Butler, and I'm gonna try to remember the name of it. If you Google Shakti Butler World Trust, you can go on her website and see the different movies she has. And in one of the movies, this exact segment came up. This exact discussion came up about racism and whatnot. And this lady was talking about how she went to a Chinese restaurant in Oakland where the movie is shot, and she went to go, ask for food, and the waiter was like, "We don't serve your kind here." Stuff like that happens. They'll serve you and stuff like that, but they'll disrespect you first. Even in China, they have all kinds of names for like a black person. Like the name is synonymous to demon in multiple of the cultures. So it's like we need to make sure that we have balanced conversations. I'm not trying to take away from the elders getting attacked and stuff like that. I feel like those are also too like people are getting desperate too with COVID, and they're trying to steal and rob and all that type of stuff. And people are just hella crazy in general. I'm not saying that a couple of older Asian folks getting harassed, beat up and harassed is not serious, but at the same time too, like I'm thinking about like all the other stuff that happens to other groups and how it doesn't even get publicized like that either. So we got to be careful in terms of like this notion about who's being targeted and who's not, because I know some of you guys are like that's the matrix. They're trying to create division. You got to be careful because there are certain specific, remember, the root races. There's specific root races for those of you who understand and you can go that deep. There are specific root races that have diverged, and some of them have become inverted. There's specific, there's I believe four specific root races. Some people who are part of those root races are a part of upholding the matrix. We're a part of imploding Atlantis and Lemuria. You got to be careful as well too. So now, because that has also happened, and some of these cultures have been a part of upholding the matrix. You see how the European folks, not all, some of them have continued to uphold the matrix, and well, that's why we have capitalism in this economic system, right? In some ways, Asian folks have upholded a matrix in a certain way too. And I'm gonna just keep it hella real. There's a reason why in the movie Get Out they were talking about triangulation. There, do you guys remember in Get Out there was one Asian man? Do you remember that? Yeah, because right now Asian folks just have just as much power. They're going to be having just as much power as the white man. That's why they get called the model minority. That's why out of all people of color, Asian folks are accepted the most. And some people are like, that's no, that's not true. It is. And some people are gonna not like what I'm gonna say, but it's true. They work hard. They're smart. They go to school, so they get put above all other people of color. It's true. Why do you think Mark Zuckerberg he's married to Asian woman? It's true. Because they still want to date people of color and stuff like that because they fetishize us, but they'll go for Asian women instead. Because it's like having the best of both worlds. I can have a woman of color and she's accepted by white people. Whoa. You guys are not looking at the deeper dynamics that are going on here. On top of that, too, China's a superpower. So, we need to be mindful about the narratives that we're weaving right now as China is taking over a lot of economies and facilitating a whole fucking global genocide. One on African people and two on the Chinese Muslims. You guys know that that's happening right now? You guys do know that, right? That in China, they're actively like gathering up and exterminating all the Muslims. They've done over 1 million people in the past 2 to 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. So we need to make sure that we're talking like a balance in the situation. And China has a lot of power now because of the way that they've dealt with America in an economic sense. Then I go online this morning because I always like to read the news. And Peter Thiel he invested in Facebook. He runs an investment firm, but he made a bunch of money in tech. Peter Thiel, every single major company, Facebook, YouTube, Apple, a lot of these different companies, he's the investor behind them. Also, Palantir, which is a very controversial government kind of like oriented think tank and research organization. They basically made like the software that helped find Osama bin Laden. They do controversial shit like that. Okay, he's invested and wrapped up all up with them too, and they're hella problematic. And he was saying like China is using Bitcoin to bankrupt the American economy and destroy the American economy. Now be careful because you're gonna see the conversation turn, and it's a fight about power and money. So we need to be mindful of that's what's going on right now. I'm gonna give you guys some insight as well, and I'm gonna paste that video into the comments so you guys can go watch that. It's about Skynet because Peter Thiel they play with black magic and shit like that too. They play with occult rituals, all that shit, all of it. And he was talking about China is taking over and they're doing this and this and that. Pay attention because they're telling you the different factions in this war. They're part of the different factions. I told you not all factions are on the same page, and China's definitely a faction not to be played with because they're gonna deal with America. But that's America's problem because while America was worried too much about keeping us all distracted and keeping us in food porn and keeping us in entertainment, China was training their children. They were studying our economy. They were studying our weaknesses. And they were also shifting our education system because one of the things too is there's a lot of investigations that have been happening over the last couple of years because a lot of the Chinese immigrants that come over, they completely defraud the education system. Like it got so bad that they shifted the entire percentile for the SATs, the LSAT for law school, the NCLEX for nursing, the MCAT for medical school, and the different SATs, TOEFL, and all those different tests that you need to get into those higher programs. You know what they were doing? They were coming here because they have hella money and they were paying people to do the test, or they were shifting the test, or they're cheating, and they shifted the entire percentile for the test. So people who were really smart and they were getting good scores on the test, they weren't getting into their schools of choice. They weren't getting good marks on the test because they were competing with the whole entire system that had been rigged and cheated. Yeah, I'm gonna look this up for you guys. You guys think that this shit is a game? It's serious. Let me pull this up right now. And it was specifically because they were talking about the Chinese immigrants. They were coming here and they were getting access. They were using money. They were paying for stuff and da 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 da. And they shifted the entire percentile for the testing system. Yeah. So a hell of people were not getting into schools and stuff like that because they were competing with like 100% and 110% and all that stuff. High test scores, but all those test scores were manipulated. You see? So hella people weren't able to get into schools. They weren't able to get into nursing programs and all that stuff started getting dominated. Yeah. This was actually in the news. I'm gonna pull this up. You guys are gonna be like, what? Shifted the whole entire LSAT, NCLEX, MCAT system. Yeah, we need to talk about that shit too. We need to talk about that. White, and that's why when I was talking about Get Out, Asian people do triangulate with white people. It'll be two of them. They'll team up. A white person, an Asian person team up against people of color. It happens all the fucking time. It's called triangulation. That's again why they had one Asian person in the movie Get Out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They talked about the whole scam. They pay for tests and all that type of stuff. Here we go. Fraud charge. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, visa frauds and things like that. Pay to pay schools. Yep, CNN on here. Wow. I'm gonna find up this whole article and it was literally talking about how they were basically running a whole scam with the LSAT and shifting the test scores. But we don't talk about that. Yeah, this was in the Atlantic. It's right here. How sophisticated test scams from China are making their way into the US. Yeah, test scams. They shifted the whole entire fucking system for the whole United States. That's not funny. We need to talk about things like this. We need to talk about what's going on in Africa there, and what Africans in Asia too. We need to talk about all this stuff. And China's abusive as fuck. Look what they've been protesting for hella long now in Tokyo and stuff like that. Shutting down the whole China's also a very much they're also a very much dictatorial state. It's a tyranny there. There's a lot of stuff that you can't go. There's even certain websites that in all of China you cannot access because they blocked it from the firewall of the country. Isn't that hella crazy? They can do so much. So I just wanted to kind of put that out because I feel like, yeah, I've seen some stuff, some prejudice stuff, some racist stuff happen towards Asian people. No lie. And I also know that a lot of Asian women they get fetishized too. So if you're listening, please be careful because a lot of the men they fetishize because they think, oh, they're just quiet and docile and da 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 da, and they're small, so they have good pussy or some shit like that. And you got to just be mindful, okay? Because I've seen a lot of I actually have my best friend for hella long was Asian. She's Filipina. Um, yeah, they do. China owns a lot of the Caribbean. Yeah, in Jamaica too. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to say that, if you're Asian American, be mindful too, because of this model minority myth and the fetishization and stuff like that. Like, I've seen a lot of women get like into toxic relationships with these men, like, and that try to subjugate them and dominate them and stuff like that. They do capitalize off that fetish. It's true. Because I had one friend, I'd stop being friends with her, and I would never ever see her with any other Asian folks, any other people of color. She would always be dealing with European folks, and she was kind of whitewashed, and she had like some racist sentiments too. So that's something that we have to talk about as well. And then again, remember, China was never colonized, so they don't have those same type of like mental health stuff and generational trauma like other Asian countries. You have to think about that. That is something to factor in because that is a tarnishing and damaging of the DNA. Wow. Oh, your son's father's Filipino. I'm Jamaican. Oh, Nikki has Chinese roots. She could. There's a lot of Asian and Chinese in Jamaica though. There's a lot. And even when I used to live in Africa, like my next door neighbors, they were Chinese. They owned a cracker factory. Yeah, and they would always come to my stepmom's hair salon to get their hair and nails done. So, in Africa, they're like even before the whole rush, like that was like in 2005. Yeah, that was like in 2005. That was before the whole rush. So they were already in the country and they were already integrated. Like they were just like us. No, we never really saw them different. There would be like a whole Chinese couple walking up and down the street and they're just like us. So that's one thing I can say. Wow, elastic fantastic. That's so crazy. Yeah, you got to be careful. So I just wanted to put these another thing too is this whole another thing that I want to talk about is this whole with gentrification. There's so much more that goes into that. There's a lot that really went into it besides just the tech industry. A lot of the gentrification was being induced by foreign real estate investment. Other countries, specifically China, was coming in and fueling that. It was really big here in San Francisco. If you look at a lot of the data, most of the gentrification was not fueled by the tech industry. No, it was fueled by offshore investment into the United States real estate market. Yeah, yeah. And right now, even in San Francisco, they're under an FBI investigation. The controller who's over like all the budgets and finance and stuff like that, she went to jail. FBI charged her because she was colluding with China. Yeah, in San Francisco. She was getting Rolex watches. She flew out there and stuff like that. They were hella colluding. Yeah. So they can open up, so they can get deals to do investments in business and stuff like that in the States. Yes. Yes. This shit is real. So even with this whole anti-Asian debate, we need to it's layers and layers and layers, and it's so nuanced. So we need to be careful about the narrative that we put out here on both ends. We need to be careful with the narrative that we put out. And Asian folks do need to recognize their power in proximity to whiteness. It's unfortunate, but Asian is the new white. It is. And I know some Asian folks are like, I don't accept that. I don't take that. That's dangerous. I'm not saying that you like that or that you accept that, but I'm saying that that's unfortunately how it is in their mind because your country has superpower now with finances. It is a part of the plan to keep them in power. Oh, a lot of people mistake you for being Asian because you're Khoisan. Oh, wow, yeah, because the Khoisan people they do look Asian too. So I just wanted to put this out there because there's a lot of shit that's been going on. I'm gonna put that Atlantic article up. That shit was crazy. They shifted the entire education system in the United States, the testing scores, playing hella games. Imagine how many people like really worked hard and they couldn't get into their school of choice. They couldn't get into programs because their scores were looked at as too low compared to the traditional percentile because they shifted the entire percentile with scams, rigging. There's a lot that goes on. Even the hair industry, there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot. There's a lot, y'all. So I just wanted to say we need to keep this conversation grounded. I don't think that elders should be getting attacked. No, I don't think that that's up for discussion. But I feel like the way that it all exploded and all that stuff, we need to be mindful because there's a lot of bullshit going on behind the background that needs to be discussed. So we're not gonna go there. What about other people that you're killing in your country? Let's talk about all of that. They shut down Rodeo Drive for a party. Yeah, they got power. Yeah, they do. They do. One of the top funders for they're doing this campaign to get rid of the governor. One of the top funders is an Asian man, an Asian Christian. Yeah, dropped racks and racks and racks in that campaign. They got power. Keep it fucking real. So, anyways, y'all, I just wanted to say that um because there's a lot that's going on right now, and you guys keep your eyes open with the Matrix. Keep your eyes open. Understand the power games and dynamics that are going on. All right, I'll be on in a minute for our stay in your lane. To stay in your lane, I'm staying in my lane with this one. I don't think that that's okay, and if I see it, I'm gonna speak out against it. I grew up around a lot of Asian folks, and their cultures are very much similar. Especially Chinese culture is similar in some ways to some Nigerian culture, like the respecting elders and stuff like that. So I completely understand. It's just also being an immigrant in America, there's a different mindset. So I understand, and I was like I said, my best friend growing up, she was Asian. I've never had an issue with Asian folks, never. because I grew up with Asian folks, Filipinas, Latin, Filipinas, Chinese, black folks. Like I grew up with all people of color, so that never crossed my mind. But I do know that some people are very ignorant, so there's that. So yeah, that's true. And that, yes, Majola. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but America, they called out and they try to sanction China for that, for the genocide of those Muslim people. And China was like, you can't really talk because of slavery. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my freaking gosh. Yeah, who really has though, right? It never really, yeah, that's why I don't understand any specific hatred towards any specific like race or culture. It's just them. Yeah, I used to speak. Yeah, speaking Tagalog. Oh my God, wow, wow, we used to watching Wow Wow We going to Seafood City in because in the Bay Area there's a large Filipino community, like especially in Hayward where I grew up. We would go to Union City and go to Seafood City and stuff like that. Oh my goodness. They used to have the song "Got Rice." You got rice. You get lucky every time you roll the dice. Asian folks used to run shit. Like when I was growing up, they were just as hood as us. Even where I live now in Oakland, I live in the Murder Dubs. That's a Vietnamese community, and they're always shooting. Ain't no black people over here. It's yeah, my whole neighborhood right here. It's predominantly Vietnamese, and they're constantly having a shooting. So y'all need to be careful because they be on some hood shit too, like real shit, like real talk. That's why like a lot of that's why this is kind of like even the way that they came out immobilized, that should be a sign towards us for people of color like that get oppressed. Look how quickly they're organized. We need to be more better about our stuff, baby. But what? Some of yours are so funny. 800 souls in Ethiopia. Wow, what is that? Talk the things. Some of them are. That's what I say. You got to be nuanced. Some of them be hood. Yeah, some of them be hood. You got to be. You just got. It's just got. It's nuanced. That's what I'm saying. Is it the immigrant type of Asian folks too, or the ones that have been here for generations? There's a difference as well because they don't even get along with each other. You guys know that, right? A lot of Asian people that have been here traditionally, they don't get along with Asian folks that have come here recently. There's a lot of that goes on too, just like with black folks and Africans. And the funny thing is, the Black Panthers used to team up with the Asians too back in the days. They were called the Yellow Panthers because we were all being oppressed. Yes. So that's why I'm like, we need to this be careful the narrative, especially when I seen that bullshit with Peter Thiel. That's gonna enhance it. It's gonna accelerate that shit. And then even with COVID, it just accelerated it too. They're kind of at war with each other. You're kind of seeing the little war that they and you guys saw what happened with the CEO of Huawei, that little cell phone company. I feel like that's when the bullshit was starting. That's what I'm saying, right? They're not gonna stop the genocide because you're doing it too. Like that's so. Anyways, I just really pray that that ends really quickly, and I just hope that the Most High brings the right people together to be able to go in and stop that mess sooner rather than later. So you guys, that's what I have for you all for today for this specific message. I feel like there could be maybe some aspects that I may be missing. Please put them in the chat in the comment. I'm not, like I said again, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's like pain or suffering or anything like that. No, 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 no. Not at all. But I'm trying to bring this up and out. Even with when stuff happens with black folk, I say the same thing too with us. Like we can go and we can protest and we can pass policies, but until we're good with each other, no one's gonna take us seriously because they're gonna use that as the same exact example, as same rebuttal, just like China did. Well, you guys do it to each other, but we need to learn. We should just be better to each other, just off GP, just off general fucking principle. Wow, yeah, and they are involved. Yep, Majola. Yep, yep. You're hella right. That's when I knew that something was gonna pop off with China once they started playing with that lady from Hawaii. Hi, Carolina. All right, y'all. Have a good day. I'll be back later.